Okay, so I got it started here on page Lamed Dalet. Now, just let me look backwards again. Let's look at the one before it, just to read the headlines and see what we could get out of Yisboyer Atam. That was on page Lamed Bet. Yisboyer Atam, Lama Ana Omrim Yud Gimel Midas Koden Nefilat Apayim. So over there, we could read this at the top because I wanted to go over it again. So when you actually do the tachnun part of it, Oz who ace nesinis v'horedis hatipa hazu. So we've been talking about this tipa that we're trying to bring down into yichud. This causes the tipa min yisod el malchus to go from the yisod into malchus. Okay, so that's when you say the part. I don't know. I call it the pasa. It's what is it? It's a psalm. When you say that part, then it causes the yisod to go into malchus. So therefore we come first and we say the 13 midos of Yavor. The akvam, and the reason why I remember this is because we want to try to hold them back, kodem taros lamata, because their nature is that they want to move fast. So in order to be able to stop them, therefore we're saying the 13 midos. Now it's interesting that you go through these 13 midos, and what are the 13 midos? The midos of Rachmim. So this 13 midos has the ability to be able to stop the tipa from going down too fast. So and then take it when it's still up in the higher place. So we have to figure out what this higher place is as we go on to the next part. The makom achaz of the zeranpen, which is at the place of the chaz of zeranpen. So therefore, the shefa reaches through the extension of the yesod, which is called the ataras yesod, into the chest of zeranpen, and we're going to hold it there. Kisham nikra ma'aver yabuk, because he says this is the place where you find the yabur and the ma'aver yabuk. So yabuk is the shilav of two names, of the name Yudke Vavke and the name Havai and name Elokim. So that's the tipa is represented by the Yudke Vavke. Now, my problem with this is that I thought this was taking place in the neck, because he said that before. It's a narrow place. And you have to go through this ma'aver, and that's what I thought. Now he's placing the ma'aver, and maybe it's two places at the same time. I don't know. Now he's placing the ma'aver at the chest. So let's go on. She'ovrim chavayos hamochim de gadlos toch elokim de katnos shebegaron. So now he says what? Again, you say this is stira. So he says in the chest here is where you have the hold-up. I'm trying to explain it out the way I can try to understand it myself. He says that the hold-up stops at the chest. So everything is flowing down and stops at the chest, He said, She'ovrim havayas amochin the gadlus toch elokim de katas, that's in the garam. So now we're back in the garam. Ki chavavaya va'elokim gematria yabak. So that's your word yabak. V'zecha v'yavor shel yud gimel midos. And this is the yavor Hashem apana v'yikra, and then you come out with the yud gimel midos, shana omrim ato, which he says has the effect of, isn't that where he said the effect? That effect is to hold up the midos. El or hamochin de gadla. So likach, let me read again. Sha'anu omrim ato, likach as or hamochin de gadla. So this is the idea of saying these 13 midos is to take this tremendous light, ha'ovrim ma'aver Yaakov, which Yabuk, which has come through this passage of a Yabuk, which he says is in the neck. V'zehu terem, and this is before sheyardu lamata, that it goes down further. The Fishanu kavar yatzach ben kavar yatzach min toch amachitzas the yisod the ima, because it's already out of the boundaries of the walls of ima. Kashenim shechas min hamoach, as it's coming out from the moach v'yardach ad sham, and it comes to the place of the nai of ima. V'askavar nigleis begalui. So he says what's happening here is that the walls of the nai of ima, we're talking particularly Yisod of ima, disappear. The oz kavar nigles begalui, then it's revealed. The oz anu ma'akvim tipazu. So now we're holding back this tipa. Bihiyosa shum, in its position there at the chest, kodesh shetered b'malchus, before it goes down through the rest of the body of Zeranpin and goes into malchus and mischalak the shlosh chalokim canal, and we divide it here at this place into 3 chalokim. Now, there's enough vagary in here that I'd like to come over and read the tiv, and then we'll get started into the next part, which is a continuation. On number Kaf Hey on page Lamed Beis, it says, Bizman Nefilat Apayim. So at that time, we're going to fall on our arms, our hands. Az hu Zman Nesidis v'Horedis Atipa Haniskeres La'el. This is taking place at the time when the tipa is coming down that we talked about. It's coming down by Yesod Shel Yaakov El HaMalchus. So it's coming from the Yesod of Yaakov to Malchus. Now notice that they're using Yaakov and not using the name Zeranpin, because there is a Yaakov also. So therefore, Anu Makdimim Lomer Achshav Yud Gimel Midos Shel Yaavor. So now we say the 13 Midos. Shal Yedei Zen, this are Am Ma'akvim as a tipo, where it's holding back the Kippah Shehi Od Lamala B'Yisod Shel Im, while it's still up above. Well, it's still in the Yesod of Ima, remembering, trying to understand my confusion here, that the Yesod of Ima has an extension from, the neck area, and extends all the way down into the chest. Shenimsa b'makom achazer shel Zeranpin, and that's where it's found now. Kodem shetered b'mehiros, before it quickly moves down, the marutz are running lamat. So number Kaf Zayin, he says, b'makom zeh she'anu ma'akmev zatipa, so the place that we hold it back, it's being held back. So that seems like maybe that's the metaphor of Yaakov was held by the Malach. I'm not sure. He says, Ke'ez Mevor, now he says, Mevor, Mahatam shenikra hamakom hatzar hazeh. So why are we calling this narrow place Shabo anu ma'akvim as a tipa, where we're holding back this tipa? B'shem ma'aver yabuk. So that's its name. So Kevan Shebamakom Zerabahu Begarum Shabo Oivrim Shemo Savaya. So he says this place, the actual place where these two meet up, is in the neck, which is he says Shabo Oivrim Shemo Savaya. So the names of Avaya Yudke Vavke are pouring through that narrow opening. Shehem Nekroyim Mochin Negadlus. Now the Yudke Vavkes are Mochin Negadlus. Besok Shemo Shel Elokim, and they're moving into the place of the constriction, which is constriction is generally speaking Elokim. Shem Nikrim Katnus, which is called Katnus. So now you have a meeting between Godless and Katnus. Vazev Romas Hashem Yabuk, and now we see the concept of Yabuk, Gematria 112, which is a Gematria of the two. Shehu Gematria Shel Chibur Zeh, that's the Gematria of this Chibur. Shel Shem Havaya, Shehu Gematria Ku. Im shelokim shehu b'gematria pu. Saka kol, what it comes out to be, 112. Zehu shem yabuk. Now understand that that's that meaning. So now this part I understood previously. Let's go to this part. So he's apparently using the concept of the meeting in the neck and then the stopping of it in the chest. You have to think about these two different things, but they all have to do with this concept of yabuk. Holding it back now by saying the 3 to Hashem, Kel, Rachum, V'chanim, going through all of that, holds it back. V'atam she'ana omrim ke'ez Nefilat Apayim. While we're doing that, Shel Yud Gimel Midos, Higdei la'atzor es tipa, we want to hold back this tipa, shehechla, the redis that had begun to go down, be'birchasim shalom, when we said birchasim shalom. Now we mentioned this once before, that in Birchas Shalom is where there's a yichud between, during the weekday it's Rachel and Yaakov, and during Shabbos it's with, I'm not sure exactly, but it's with Rachel and Zeranpin in a bigger sense. Ad shehagia the das shel Zeranpin. So he says, and this keeps going until, it's moving down until it reaches the area of the das. So we said previously there's an upper and a lower das. So then you say a vidui, yarda ad makom machaza. It goes, so he says like this, so he's explaining it out for me, he's helping me out. He says the first thing is that they meet in the neck, which is the place of the upper das. But then, as you start to say the vidui, which is the first thing we do, Then it goes down to the place of the chest, Shel Zer Anpin Shuhum Ma'aver Yabuk, when he says now this is actually the place which is called the Yabuk passage. But we hold it there Ka'ez now, Shelo Samshech Leredis, so it shouldn't keep going down further. What's the problem? Kadesha Lifnei Shetera the Tipa Lamata, so that before the Tipa can go downwards, Nuchul Lakachas as Or HaMochin Shalagadlos, we could take the Yud-Kei Vavkes, the light that comes from those Yud-Kei Vavkes, She'ovrim Ke'es B'Ma'aver Yabuk, which is now moving through this Ma'aver Yabuk, again, the meeting place between the Elokim and the Havaya. And what are we going to do when we get it to this position where we've held it up there, is that we're going to divide it into three. So here's what I hear. He says that when you say the Viduy, that's moving the Tipa from the place of the neck into the chest, which is now be called the Ma'aver Yabuk, which is the place of the meeting of this Havaya with the Elokim. And then we're going to move on from there. We're going to hold it there as a result of saying the 13 midos. And then we're going to see what we're going to divide it. Pirush ana ma'akvim es atipa shenimshachim min hamoach ha'elyon. So this shenimshachim min hamoach ha'elyon. So we're taking this tipa that's extended down from that. V'yagia, and it should reach all of the kan, the yisod shal ima, to the yisod of ima. Shebechaza the Zer Anpin, which is now at the Chaza the Zer Anpin, because I said it has an atara to it, which extends it down there. So we hold it back here. Shelo Serid the Mata should keep going down. V'teitze mechutz the bechitzu shel yisod shel ima, and then it would go out from the walls, the mechitzos of the yisod of ima. Shebechaz Zer Anpin, which is now at the chest of Zer Anpin, Shuhum Ma'aver Yabuk. Once again, he says this is the passageway out into the goof of Zer Anpin, which will lead it ultimately to this tipa, to Malchus. Kedei lachalka lifnei shetetzi b'mena v'disgala b'galui, before it can be revealed up, go out and be in what we call the revealed part. So now before the tipa comes out of the walls of ima, in order to make that move down to Malchus, so we hold it back here, to divide it into three parts. So therefore we see that if it goes out from I guess from this yisod, then once it gets out, it's loose. And so the barn door is open, and once that happens, you're not going to be able to, you can't hold it back anymore. And divide it into three cholokim, so it has to be done here. So since we see that it's now revealed, miyad b'mrutza l'mata b'li sheteschalak de'ein ma sheyakva. The translation is that v'hi terid, and if it was let loose, it would go down miyad immediately, but marutza running fast, the mata b'li sheteschalak, without being divided up, de'ein ma sheyakva, because there's nothing to hold it back. So this is all about what we're able to hold it back and be able to divide it. Who mesivus mechitzas yisod is because of the yisod, of the walls of the yisod itself, so that keep it there. So he's going to go into it a little bit more over there. Now, so we got through that, and so basically we have the pattern of how it matches up with the procedure of what we call the tachnun, or ARI Vayaavor, and the Nefilat Apayim. It says that first you have the movement from the neck down into the chest. That takes place in the Viduy. And then after the Viduy, we're going to hold it at the chest by saying the 13 meters of Rachamim. And then what comes after that, we're going to actually have the Nefilat Apayim. We haven't got to that yet. So now we're going to explain, I'm reading up at the top now, Bir Tevas Vayaavor. Now we're going to explain how to understand the word Vayaavor. He says, so now it comes out from this one portion. Shehu Sod Shem Havaya the Av the Yudin, which is the secret of the name Havaya the Yudin. Excuse me. So Havaya the Av the Yudin, because the Havaya the Av comes out to be the Havaya the Yudin comes out to be 72, which is Av. V'nimshechas v'holechas b'chesed, and so what happens now? So it goes, and it's going to be divided into chesed shuhu zeruah hayam and dezah. So first thing is going to happen is this tipa is going to go into the right arm of zah. Vela sosbo chibuk yoser ma'ula, and he says the reason why that we're going to do this is because we want to this once again is a mating process, a process of mating, is so that there should be a hugging which is on a more higher level of hugging. It has to be explained. About, huh?
We understand that the first hugging was with the left hand under the head of you, and not initially, but it's on the right side.
Right. So now he says that. So what we're going to do is let's see his words. We had this.
That's what I remember.
Oh no, okay, no, I'm not. It's not that. He's just saying something else. You're not wrong. Okay, that's the first one. Is on the left, and there's some arichas to this that has to be looked at. So now you're talking, and he says he wants a higher level of yichud here, and that's the reason we're now in tachnun, right? So we're in tachnun, and we're now trying to figure out what's going on. There's a higher level of yichud that we're working on here. So we have to see what that higher level of yichud is. Why isn't he talking about the other one? Because that's not the place for it. It's over here on the right side. So let me read from Lamed Gimel. He said, "V'nimshechas v'holechas b'chesed," and it goes down, and it moves into the side of the right, shehu's roach hayam dezah, which is in the right arm. In order to make a higher level of chibuk, this would be, as you said, is the first one. The first chibuk is with the left hand, but the second chibuk is going to be with the right. But originally, now this has to be examined. It's like maybe a new idea. There are three avs to begin with. The first aval shlosha av harishonim, the first three avs, shehoy b'chasad b'gevuras v'teferes dezer anpin. So he says like this. He says that the av, the concept of this 72, there are three of them. He's going to have to explain that. And they actually wind up going into the chagat of Zeranpin, which is Chesed Gevurah Teferes Zeranpin. Three of them. Shloshtan miskabsechu b'smol dezah. But here's what happens, is that they all gather together on the left arm of Zah. V'sham nischavru, and there they become together. Shlosha b'pamim av v'na'asa rayo. Now this is actually a big idea, an idea that I took years to be able to try to figure out what we're talking about here. He says you have these three 72s. The 72 is the gematria of chesed. You put the three of them together, and you move them to the left. Why to the left? Because the left is where the gevurah is. So this is just, you have to think about this and meditate on this a little bit, but he's going to flush it out better too. He says that they wind up going to the left, and they produce this gematria of rayo. Shu b'gematria gevurah. So you take three roots of chesed, you put them together, and you push them to the left, and they become the secret of rayo. Rayo is a gematria gevurah. But in other places, we want to say that rayo is a concept of the sweetened gevurah. It's not that Hashem wants to eliminate dinim. He wants the dinim to be sweet. B'hamnam ha'av de bechinas ha'chesed. So we see that the av, which is on the side of chesed, nimshach b'zroa yamim, it extends itself into the right arm. Ata min atipa haniskeres kanisker. So we're talking about holding back the tipa to split it. So now he's saying that, and we have to get this in order because I think there's a few things mixed up in here. Ata min atipa niskeres kanisker. So now that we said this tipa, that the first thing it does is it wants to move to the right arm. Nimsa shehem av rayo. So I'm not sure where this came from, so we'll find out. V'zera v'sod v'yavor. So this is, I see what he means to say. He says, and now since you have the tipa going into the right arm, and the tipa is an av, and then you had already some kind of confluence of the three of them together in the left side. So he wants to say, let's take these letters, Ali, Ayin, Bet, Resh, Yud, Vav, put them together, mix them around, throw them up and down, make an omelet, and it comes out to be Avrayo. So Yavor is also the concept of Avrayo. So this is a secret that I would like to learn why he's telling me this and what it's all about. So he says this whole inyan is dealt with in the Idra Rabbah, Daf Kuf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. So he said inyan Avira Dachya. So over there it's talking about this very fine air, which is in the head of Eric Anpin. V'sham Tamim Havid inyan Av Rayo. So there you're going to really understand the concept of Av and Rayo. Ma inyane ba'amitos, what is its true function? I'd like to know that. V'chein b'bir kriya shemash alamita. There's also over there. Okay, now this is a heavy piece. So let's go. It's going to have some new stuff in it. And let's try to understand what he's talking about. So he says, now, so we got through the process of holding back the tipa and saying that we're going to split the tipa now into three. But it's not clear what the three are, or any of it. It's not clear. He says, so we're on page Lamed Hey in the right column. What are the portions? In other words, it's divided into three. What are the places they're going? Into what places are these three portions going? So he says, so the first part, where the Rab said up above, these are quoting the word Vasheni. The second thing is to take it and put it into the chesed of Zer Anpin, his right arm. This chesed, this is what is going on, is a part of the Av of Yudin. Sheyesh bo dalad Yudin, shu b'gematria Av. Now, why he said that it has 4 Yudim in it, does, and we count them up, because Yud Vav Dalad is 1, He K Yud is 2, Vivav Yud Vav, and K Yud makes 4. Because then the asa almanasta also chibuk yoser ma'ula min arishon. So now the idea here is to make a higher level of chibuk from the first one. That's why I said sheni up above. It didn't mean that it meant that there's a second chibuk. Shuhu chibuk avor hazivugim shia asa ge'es, and this is a chibur that we want to be able to do in order to be able to make a yichud. That was done now taking place now. Shehem Zun, and now he's defining Zun as Yisrael V'Leah B'Vayavor, that the word Yisrael and Leah comes in V'Yavor. V'Yakov Arachol B'Nefilat Apayim. Now let me read this again. He says there are 2 different Yichudim that are taking place here. One takes place when you say the word V'Yavor. So I see the Sfardim all bow down when they say V'Yavor. They don't know why, but they're doing it. That's what they do, so they bow down with that. And then when you go to Nefilat Apayim, because when you say V'Yavor, and then you come to the 13 Midos, which I guess is the splitting of them. And then the next one, when you come to, and that causes a Yichud between Yaakov and Leah. Then they have a Yichud of Yaakov and Rachel, which takes place in Nefilat Apayim. So there's a lot of detail here, and we'll go on. So the Nimshach, and I'll try to look at at what we could get out of the Rishash Siddur, but not too much. The Nimshach v'choylech chelik zeh shel tipa b'kav yamim. So what happens is this portion of this tipa goes onto the right line. Shuhu chesed zah. So this is the right line of their anpin, that's where it goes. So I said, so now everything that's happened up to now, so he changes the whole idea, and I'll read it again. He says that in the first three brachos, which is the Birchos Avos, and you have to count back over there in the Rishash Siddur. So, well, I wasn't prepared to get out my Rishash Siddur. I know you got yours out there, because I'm not really. I find it hard to move around in this book, so I have to have. I have to have bookmarks. I'm not going to do it now. Let's just keep going on with this. And I'll try to get this more lined up with it better. Let's see.
But excuse me, just back up for clarification.
Yes.
You have two Yehudim. You have one with Yaakov and Leah, one with Yaakov and Rachel.
Right.
You're saying that the Yichud in the Yomei Achol is between Yaakov and Rachel. And
right.
The Yichud with Leah happens on Shabbos, where there's no tachnun.
No, I didn't say that.
No, okay, but that's...
No, the Yichud with Leah takes place after midnight.
Okay.
But here it is, you see it's out of place. So therefore, I don't know this Inyan that well. I'm learning along with you, so I don't know the Inyan that well. To me, there needs more understanding of what the Yichud between Yaakov and Leah is. And the whole phrase is Yaakov Leah Lamala Minachaza. Now, that's a yichud that takes place, and we could just leave it at that, but I don't really understand how it comes about. I don't understand how it comes about. Okay, but we'll keep functioning on this. Now, he's going to say something completely different now. He says, V'kol masha na'asa ke'eh, so everything that we're doing now, I think I'm on Lamed Daled.
Lamed Daled?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's where I'm at. Yeah, so we got the tipa into the right arm. So, and the reason for it is because we want to make these yichudim. So everything that's done now, a higher one than the chibuk that takes place in the first three brachos of the Shmona Esrei, Ayidecha B'Gimel Av. Now that's a whole other story of exactly, but he's telling us the fact that there's a chibuk, the first chibuk takes place in the Shmona Esrei by the use of the Rishon Ayidecha HaGimel Av through the Gimel Av. Now right now I'm not going to go into that. So let's just take this as a fact. In the Birchei Avos, in the beginning, in the first three brachos that you have in the Shmona Esrei, he says there's a chibuk that takes place at that time. So he says that chibuk apparently is the left-handed chibuk, I think. V'chatam shechibuk zeh ma'ula yoses, and now we're going to the right side and we're making a higher level of chibuk. Kamosha kasu la'el, shetipa zu hanimshechas, because the tipa, as it is extending down or going to its place, he tipa ma'ula b'yoser, it's a tremendously high level of tipa. Kevin shenimshechas b'makom gavoa, because it's coming from a very high place. Kinimshechas ma'or hamakiv shelachach medazah, because where it's coming from, it's coming from the light of the makif, which is in the chachma, that is the makif of chachma of Zer Anpin, which is the mem and the lamed of the tzelem that we had talked about previously. Hanimsa al Rosho, they're found on top of Zaz's head. So now when they went into Zaz's head, right, as Mochin, as the Chabad, remember there were originally 4. Then they condensed down into the Nai of Ima, and they go into the head of Zer Anpin into 3 different places. So Nimsa al Rosho, so therefore they're inside of his head, V'shorsha mechasadim dedas ta'atik. Now he says the root of these, you know that the das of Atik is maluvish in the Gugolta of Eric Anpin. Let's just go, this is a lot of stuff here, and he's got more. So in Nimsa al Rosho, so these originally, the concept of this Tzalim originally began in the Chesed of Atik Yomim. Chesed of Atik Yamin is extremely panimis. This is the best we can understand from Chesed. We have some inkling of what it is, but it's maluvish in the Gugalt of the Erik Anpin, which is the Chesed of Erik Anpin, which is a Chesed area. The Das, and then it comes out. So it's the Chesadim of the Das, the Atik. He says that's what's there. It's the Chesadim of the middle line. I had heard previously that it's just the Chesadim. But anyway, I have to think through that. Kamosha Kosev Rav Le'el, the Rav says like this, Shetipa Hazroa, so the tipa of planting, which is supposed to be going to Malchus, He Ma'ula Ma'od is in a tremendously high level. At any rate, going over what he said is that the origin of the tipa is coming from the Chasadim of Das of Atik. That's where he says it comes from. So he says, wait a minute. The Chasadim of the Das of Atik. Let's talk about Atik just for a second. I mentioned this the last time, and see if you can recall this. Atik is really unknowable to a certain extent, and so therefore Atik is also known as the Reisha, the Lo Isya, the head that is not knowable. So he said, in other words, we try to figure out what it could be, but it's not knowable by us. So he says that in the head are three Mochin, right, of Atik, which are Chabad, again. So he says that, okay, I'll just say this, I'll try to put it in order, right? So he says, which is in the Gar. So the Gar of Atik, the way we understand it, which is the Chabad of Atik, is the Reisha de Lo Isyada. But we do have some inkling of the Zat of Atik, which is the Chesed Gevurah Tiferes Netzach and the Malchus of Atik. There, because it's lodged inside of the Gugolta of Erik Anpin, then we have some reference to it. But the first three that are up above, we really don't know what they are exactly. So that's the hardest part of the Otros Chaim is to learn that. It's very difficult to learn what makes up the Gar of Atik. So here he says that the origin of the Tipa is from the Gar of Atik. It's from the part of the Gar which is called the Das of Atik, and it's from the right line, the right side of the Das of Atik. That's how high this is coming, and it's coming from. That's what the Tiv is. There's a Tiv. The Tiv is writing here. Okay, so let's go on. So if you have an inkling about what I was saying there, I was just working it out myself. And so once again, the Gar of Atik is unknowable, but nonetheless, one part of the Gar of Atik is the origin of this Tipa. V'chatam kavar kasabda le'el, kevin she'ena mis'ave klal b'yiridasa. We said this before. It remains completely and totally pure. When you're talking about the Das of Atik, you're talking about something which is so not physical that it's impossible to really try to figure out what its physicality is, but that's what this light is. So therefore, it's a very powerful light. This is a powerful light of nothingness, of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. I don't know what that could mean. Pure spirituality? I don't know. But it doesn't thicken at all. Lo misave klal b'yiridaso. It remains exactly just as bright or non-bright as it was. Shelo kabishar shefa. It's like this is not like any other shefa that comes from up above and goes down below. But misave b'yiridaso, which always become more thickened, and in other words, more physical as they're going down. So it says the same level of light up above as it has down below, so it didn't change at all. And it shines for the purpose of shining. Just wants to give. Its light is tremendously powerful, which is the light of the Maisa Bereshis, that shines from the beginning of the world until its end. So this is a little bit of an idea of what that light is like. Now we're talking about, we brought this 72, I don't know, it's 172, I don't know, that one of the 72s is over in the right arm. And he says the reason, let me read it again, V'achibuk zehu avor hazivugim. It's because of the zivugim, which is in plural, because we said there's two of them. Sheya'asika es are going to be made now. Shehem zun Yisrael, which is zun. Now zun always means opposites, or zocher v'nok, right? Male and female. One of the Yikudim is Yisrael v'leah, Vayaavor. When you say the word Vayaavor, then you're doing this Yichud. V'Yaakov v'Rachel, then Yaakov and Rachel Nefilat Apayim. So you're making a Yichud there. Now I know there's a lot more to this, but if Ayin b'Shefa, so he has stuff in the Shef. Let's look at number Lamed Hey. So now we're getting along and we're moving over here and we're getting at some ideas. Aval Gimel Av Rishonim Shepirtam Harav La'el. So he said there were originally, I think he's going to need to talk about this. There were originally 3 Avs. The Rav explained to them previously. I'm not sure whether it's in our section we was brave. Shal Yadam Na'ase Bechibuk HaKodem B'Hamida B'Gimel Makomos. So there are 3 places apparently in the Shmona Esrei when you start out the first 3 brachos. They have the power of Av over there. So let's go to the phrase Sha'al Yadam Na'ase B'Chibuk HaKodem B'Hamida B'Gimel Makomos. So there is one chibuk there, and it takes place in 3 different places. That's the first chibuk. Hachibuk harishon b'tzad yamim b'chesed dezah hana'aseh b'birchos avos. Now let's just go over this. So he's just saying it out. The first chibuk takes place in the birchos avos. He said, "But the chibuk hasheni, the second one, hu b'chibuk b'tzad small, which is the chibuk of the tzad small." So he says it starts on the right. He says, and then the next one is on the left side, begavura the zeranpin, because the gavura is on the left. Hana'asa ba'ata gibor. So when you say ata gibor, he said that means that you're moving the av over, or there is an av that's attaching there. V'hachibuk hashlishi shall av hu chibuk b'kavim soy, and then the third one is in the middle line. Shehu b'teferes the zeranpin hana'asa ba'ata kadosh. So you have these 3 brachos, the birchos avos. Then the next one is Atar Gibor, and the third one is Atar Kadosh. Those 3 actually make a chibuk, a chibuk, right, left, and center. So that's that chibuk that takes place there. Now that is something we're going to get to with God's help. We get through this with God's help, and we'll go over there. So we'll get in more detail because that's really important. We have to know what's playing in the Shemona Esrei. So the shloshos chibukim elu shehoyu nifradim. So there are 3 separate chibukim there. Bechibuk hakodem b'tefilas amida. This is the first chibuk that takes place during Amida. V'hoyu b'chagat. And now he says, where does this take place? It takes place in the middle section, in the chesed gevurah teferes, in the chagat. So he says over him, and then he goes pass through umiskabsim ke'eh. So now these chibukim, I guess he's talking about, they're all going to join together now. Kulom el hasmol dezer anpin. Yeah, so he makes this chibuk, these 3 in these 3 places in the Shemona Esrei, and now they're all going to move to the left line of Zer Anpin, to the small of Zer Anpin. V'sham his chavru kol shloshos chiburim elu. And when they reach the left, because you had one av on the right side, one av in the middle, and one av on the left. Now they're all in the left. Shehem av, av, av. Add 3 times av. Sikumum hakolol yotzerayev. So if you add them all together, they come up to the gematria of Rayo, 216. Shezecha begematria gevura, which is also the same gematria as the word gevura. So you took that. This is a big secret in terms of, like, say, we actually could get to a place where we really knew how to pray, right? So say we had the time to do it and we did it. Is that this is a secret of how you make, I think, a sweetened gevura, and that's really what you want. That's the love that you want. So let's go on to number Lamed Zion. So now that we said that, and we know about the first chibuk, because that was your first question. He said the chibuk was with the small. So what are we talking about now? Now we're talking about the chibuk, but it is with the small. But he's saying that it actually has 3 parts. And the 3 parts make it into a rayo. All of that idea. But now we're going to come over, we're going to talk about our Inyan. We're talking about Vayaavor. And he's going to make a conclusion to what he said previously. He said, the ha'av shebebechinas ha'chesed. So the av that goes to the chesed, who avor chibuk chodosh. It's to make a new chibur, mu'ula yoser, which is going to be a very, very high level. Shuhu chibuk abor hazivugim. So this is a chibur that we're going to make for the sake of the zivugim. Sheyasa ke'ei shehem zun yisore v'leah b'yavor, as we said before, and Yaakov arocha b'nefilas apayim. So now this whole business that we're bringing the avs in, and we're saying that this is coming through at this time, and the word Vayaavor and with the Nefilas Apayim is for the sake of this yichud, these yichudim. Who nimshach levado b'zroa yamin, so this av goes first by itself into the right arm. Minatipa sheneschalko. So this is the tipa that got divided up. It goes into the right arm, and that's where it goes. So let's go to the next one. So he said, Ke'es now, Maskem es agavona sheyesh kan av v'rayo. So now let's go over to the gavona that we want to talk about here. The gavona is that you have these two elements. One is av and the other one is rayo. Shem shlosha pamim av, and rayo we understand is 3 times 72, who av dalid. Now, v'od, av dalid. And there's a fourth av also. Va'av rayo. So now you have this. Now you have in 3 places in the Chagat of Zer Anpin, you now have 3 havayos, and these 3 havayos, and he says there's also a 4th one. So now what you have is you have the 3 originals, which are rayo, and you have an av. So now you have the word av rayo. Hemanokrium v'gematria shel Vayaavor. Mix them around, and you have the word Vayaavor is av rayo. So he says there's more in the shefa. The shefa is usually cite references in different they bring in someone who either agrees or disagrees with this idea, but it's usually very brief, and that's why I don't go over there right now. So now we have the concept of Vayaavor is the concept of mixing av with rayo. So rayo is what? It's sweetened dinim, and av is just adding more chesed onto it. So this chesed that you're bringing down from a higher place, and parenthetically, we should know that yichud cannot take place without the moach of chochmah. So the chochmah, we see this in Otos Chaim. So therefore, you have to have something very powerful that can make a yichud take place. So so there's where you're at the 4th. That's what I'm thinking is the 4th av. So you have the rayo, which is a gevura, and then another av on top of it. So he said, but nidvas etzleinu, so in the publication that we have here, b'daf kuf lamed hey amad beis, v'ayim b'shefach u'gavonim b'masha kasavta b'bi'uro, so there's more down below, b'shem shar ma'amari Rashbi, in that sefer. He says, that sefer, okay, that's it for that piece. Okay, so, do you want to stop here? That was a lot. Okay, that's good for. I could read the next part. Let's read the next part. See how interesting it is. So we'll just read the top part, okay? Yisbora al yedechem mashal. So now we're going to use a story. Hatoela sheyesh be'iku vatipa lamala. So he's going to tell the story. I hope I can translate it. So he says it's a story about what the actual purpose is of holding back this tipa up above before it reaches the body of Zer Anpin. So let's see what it says here. So now he says, V'noida, kikasher mayim rabim yordim derek sinor echad b'merutza. So you have a gutter and you have a downspout. And the water is running down through the groundspout. Afal pi shachat sinor haku yihya dak v'tsar ma'od. Even though that the tube itself, the downspout, is very narrow. Ein hamayim misakvim bo. The water will not be held back. And it will keep going, flowing downwards into the end of the tzinor, which is down below. But let's say you close up the mouth of the downspout. lamata, at the bottom part. B'makom hakoluach hamayim, where the water all foams up over there or gathers together. Az yachzor hamayim hayardim v'ya'alo malo. Then the mayim which was going downwards is now going to go upward. Vein koch b'mechitzas atzinor la'akva. And what happens is because now you have this bulge that's taking place in the tzinor. It doesn't have to be made out of metal. Let's say it's made out of something that's breakable. So az miskalkalim mechitzas atzinor v'nishbarim. So then what happens is that the walls of the tube break. Atzinor nishbarim, and they break. They become stopped up. So through the cracks and the openings in the side, the water starts flowing out. So now come over here. He said, we see this tremendous light of this tipa, and it's got a GPS, and it says nukva, and it's going there. And it says that you have this really running down, and it's going to go right straight to the nuklo yihya mekalkel mechitzos. There's no walls there to lo hoyu mekalkel mechitzos. So there was no problem in the mechitzos. But now, so in other words, it was running. It's running down to the nukva. So he says, Asher anachnu ma'akvim, so we're holding it back lamala up above makom mechaza at the place of the chaza. So that's the place. It's a stopper there. Makom yitzias, or this is the place where this is the end of the tube. This is the place where the light comes out. Yitzias or mipiya yisod de'ima is a mistayim sham kanoida. So that's where it stops. Oz. In koch b'yisod the ima lahachziko. So then what happens here is that the yisod of ima is not strong enough to be able to hold this pressurized water that is flowing through it. Ki oro gadol ma'od, because the nature of this light is tremendously powerful. It's huge light. V'hiyosa nimshach min ha'makif ha'elyon. Why? Because it comes from the upper makif, which he says is from chasadim. Which is now residing in the Muach HaChochma, which is the right brain of Zeranpin. So this has gotten that far, and it wants to come down, and this is where, let's say within Zeranpin, this is how the flow is going, and now you're going to stop up the flow. So once again, this concept of Chochma, I just want to reinsert this, very important to the Yichud process. So the Chochma has to be involved. If you're building, you have to start with Chochma, Chabreshus Chochma. So that makes it possible to build something. So here now we have the light coming out, but the light is too powerful. It was, as we said, was never adulterated, never thickened in any way. It's pure. So now it's in the Chochma Zer Anpin of the Chain, Bechitzos Yisod the Ima. So therefore the walls of the Yisod of Ima, miskalkulim, they become corrupted, weakened, mistalkim, and disappear and leave. V'nisharim ha-mochin biltim l'levushim. So now you have these mochim, and they're out there meluvashim b'netzachod yisod de'ima. They're no longer inside the netzachod yisod of ima. They're just sort of like hanging there. So everything is stopped up. You can't get the light cannot go out from the bottom, and so therefore it builds up in the middle. And the middle breaks open. And that's the story that we're going to explore with God's help in the next year.
Very good.
Thank you for learning with me today. Thank you so much. Call to.
Okay, with a bit of thought and prep, we could dedicate this learning to the memory and discourse of Shemi Weiss, who was at Eretz Yisrael. I don't know if you knew Shemi.
I knew Shimi from the pizza place.
Yeah.
But I couldn't recognize him from the picture you sent me. I didn't know that was Shimi. So
really?
Yes. So over here in Boca Raton, huh?
He was a classmate of my brother in law school at the University of Miami, but I knew him as an undergrad. We were very good friends even before when we were living in Kendall. And, it's very big loss. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, Baruch Dynamic. So I saw you. So that's Shimi Weiss. I look familiar. Okay, all the best. Thank you for learning today.
Okay, thank you.
Kol Tov.